In this video, I'm going to walk you through the latest changes to TabView in iOS 26 and iPadOS 26, from the new glass effect to SearchTab behavior and tabbar accessories. We'll cover everything you need to know to make your app shine on both iPhone and iPad. There have been all sorts of subtle changes and additions to tab views this year that impact both iOS and iPadOS. You'll learn in this video how to design your tab view-based apps so that they will work great in both iPhone and iPad. You'll learn about the new look for tab bars in iOS with the glass effect. You'll learn how to control the placement of the search tab and how, in an iPhone, the search bar gets incorporated into the tab bar itself. You'll learn about the tabBarMinimizeBehavior view that you can now add to your tab bar and how it collapses in a scroll view down into the tab bar when you scroll down. On the iPad, we'll review the different tab bar placements here and how the new adjustable windows react to our design. I do have a starter project for this video, and I encourage you to download it from the link in the description. There are two branches, and if you want to work along with me, download the starter project branch. You can either clone the repository or download the zipped archive. I do recommend that you work along with me, but if you'd prefer, you can also download the completed source code from the completed branch. It's up to you. The starter project has 4 views and a data manager class. We'll be starting with the Start tab as we want to display all 3 of the other views as tabs. The first will be this people list view, and it's simply a list that lists all of the people in the environment's data manager class's people array. In that data manager class, you can see that it's an observable class, and it has a single function that allows me to add a person to the list that is currently this array. At the app starting point, you can see that there's an instance of this class created and it's injected into the environment. The second and third tabs are simply views displaying a simple image asset. So let's create that tab view right now, but we'll still be modifying it as we move along through this project so that we can learn as many new things as we can, as well as have a refresher on the existing API. So the first tab in our tab view is going to be our people list view. So we'll need to create the tab view first. And then inside the tab view, I'll create a tab using the title resource system image content initializer. For the title, it will be people list. And for the system image, I'm going to use person.to.fill. The view for the tab will be the people list view. Now the preview crashes because the people list view that is presented requires access to the data manager class from the environment, and we have not fetched that here in this view. So I'm going to inject this into the environment for the preview so that it will no longer crash. I'll need to add 2 more tabs for the second and third tab views. Let's use second as the title resource for the second tab, and I'll use the system image 2.circle. The view will be the second tab. The third tab will use 3.circle, and the view will be third tab. You can see now that the tab view has a new look, and you can swipe to move the tab, revealing the glass bubble as you move. This is the new liquid glass design effect. The list view disappears behind the tab view. Now, Apple is really encouraging us now to make sure that our iOS apps are available on iPad as well, especially with the new resizable windows. So we're going to be making sure that this app project looks great on both. You can use the display at the bottom of the preview to switch between iPhone and iPad. And I'm using the iPhone Dynamic Island and the iPad 11. The first time you make your selections, Xcode has to load the preview simulators. After that, they are loaded and you can move quickly between them. So I can see here on the iPad, the tabs are along the top, but without the system images, just the titles. But you can move between them with the new liquid glass drag look. Let's switch back to the iPhone and check out what happens if we add additional tabs. So I'm going to create a fourth tab here, and I'll use 4-dot circle as the system image, but I'm just going to create a text view here. So far, so good. So let's create a fifth tab. This is good too. Let me add a sixth. As soon as I do that now, it turns into a More menu. And when I tap on it, we get a navigation list view displaying the fifth and sixth tabs that I can then get access to from there. That isn't different from before. Let me switch to the iPad. And here I can actually see all 6. So what happens if I add a 7th one? So let's do that and see what happens. The 6th then turns into an arrow that when tapped will reveal the 6th and 7th tabs. And if you want to go back to the first, you can press the left arrow. On the iPad, we can also add a TabViewStyle modifier. And you have 4 options. They are automatic, which is what we have now, and page, which turns your tab views into a carousel. But we've got sidebar adaptable, and that's what really interests me here because it adds a new icon to the left of the tab bar. And if we only had 6 tabs, you would get the arrow still here. So it appears that on the iPad, there are still a maximum of 6 slots available before you get the more arrow. What this icon does when in portrait view and tapped, it reveals a sidebar list of all of your tabs, and it's overlaid so that you can select one from there. If you switch to landscape mode, the sidebar is added, but not as an overlay to the existing view, and the tab bars disappear along the top. You can tap the icon on the left to go back to the top bar tabs. If you chose tab bar only as the tab view style, that will just force the top tab bar. I want to revert back though to the sidebar adaptable because that's what I want for this particular project. Let me switch back to portrait on the iPhone then. I can see that the tab view style that we applied for our iPad has no effect, and that's great. Now let me remove those extra tabs with text views now though, as I don't need them for this project. We only have 3 tabs. So far though, everything except the new liquid glass effect is not new. All of that existed in iOS and iPadOS 18. But it's important to know so that you can take advantage of what is new. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. And make sure you subscribe to my channel and enable notifications. You can also subscribe to my weekly newsletter. I'll leave a link in the description. The newsletter will provide you with more information about my latest videos along with what's coming up, plus some extra bonus material. Now, if you enjoy my content and want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. If you really enjoy it, you can become a monthly subscriber and receive early access to all of my videos before they're released on YouTube. Well, we want to enable some search functionality for our people list. So first, let me go to the Data Manager class and add an observable variable for a filter string. And I'm going to initialize that as an empty string. And this will be bound to a text field in my people list array, so that when I enter text into that text field, we want to be able to filter the array based on whether or not the names contain that filter string. So I can create a computed filtered list property that is an array of string. And then we can apply the filter method on the people array and then return the entire array if filter is empty. Or we can iterate over each one of them using $0 and see if the localized case insensitive contains the filter. So if I return then to the people list view, I can change the list to use the filtered list from the manager class instance. And we see that nothing's changed because we haven't entered any string into that filter. So every time this view appears, though, I want to make sure that I remove any previous filter string. So within an onAppear block, I'll set an empty string to the manager.filter. Then I can attach a searchable modifier to the list where the text is going to be bound to the manager.filter. Well, the problem here is that it can't find the manager class because it's in the environment. So the binding does not work unless we create a bindable manager that is equal to the environment one. You can see now that in this people list view, entering text into the search field filters the list. So let's return to the tab view now, and you can see that a search field is at the top of the people list here too. So we can add now, though, another tab bar with a role of search. So it's going to be a tab. We'll use the string search, but the system image is going to be magnifying glass. And the role will be search. But I'll still need to have a view to present, and the view that we want to provide search for is going to be our people list view. Now the search is still at the top of the people list view in the first tab, but if I tap on the search tab on the tab bar, I get the same list, but the tab bar collapses and the search is now within the tab bar itself. This is pretty cool, but I really don't want to see that in the first tab. And when I'm on tabs 2 and 3, I still see that same search tab here too. And that doesn't really make any sense because there's nothing to search. So if I knew what tab I was on, I could display the search button there only, and I could only display the searchable field if I was on the search tab. So what we can do is we can create a scene storage variable for the start tab. And we can specify a key of selected tab and create a variable of the same name. And we'll give it an initial int value of 0. And we use scene storage here because in a tab view, you might have many instances of this application, so that you may want to make sure that each of the different instances of scenes remembers the last tab that it was selected, and that can be different on each instance. So what we can do then is add another argument to our tab view that is the selection argument, and that's going to be bound to our selected tab. We'll then have to assign a value to each one of our tabs as an additional argument. So it will be 0 for the first tab. We'll set the value to 1 for the second tab. And then 2 for the third tab. But we still have that search tab, so we're going to apply 3 for the search tab. And that value has to precede the role. So I can now wrap that search tab in an if clause and check to see which the selected tab is. And if it's equal to 0, or if it's equal to 3, selected tab is equal to 3, that's the only time I want to present the search tab. That now solves the search tab issue, as it's now only visible when I'm on the people list tab. And when I tap on the search bar, I get the search field at the bottom. The other problem, though, is that when I'm on the first tab, I still see that search field at the top, and I don't want that there. So I can go to the people list view, and I'm going to create in that list view a view modifier so that I can restrict when I want the search modifier to be applied. So first I'll need a scene storage variable here too. So we'll use the same one, selected tab. That's got the initial value of 0. And I'm going to create a view modifier called isSearchable that conforms to the view modifier protocol. Now this will require a body function that returns some view, and we'll be able to do some conditional checking on that content. Now I'm going to need to know the selected tab, so let's create a let property for a selected tab that we can pass in. And I'm also going to have a binding for the filter, which is a binding of a string. Then we can check to see if the selected tab is 3, because that's where we attach the searchable modifier, where the text is bound to that filter. Otherwise, we'll just return the content, so no search tab. Now to make this more swifty, then we can create an extension to view. And then within the extension, we'll create a function that has the same name as the view modifier, but start with a lowercase. And it's going to have 2 arguments that match our view modifier properties. The selected tab that's an int, and the filter that's a binding to a string. This is going to return some view. We can then apply the modifier and pass in our isSearchViewable modifier with the selected tab and the filter matching the arguments. I can then go back and replace my searchable modifier to the isSearchable, and then pass in the manager.filter as the binding and the selected tab as the selected tab. When I return to the people list tab now, I see that there is no search field at the top. And there is no search tab when I'm on the second and third tabs. But if I return to the people list tab and then tap on the search tab, the tab bar collapses and I can search and filter. So what does this look like on the iPad? Let me also switch to landscape. You can see that the search bar has been added to the sidebar. However, it's only visible when I'm on the people list. If I tap on it, I can search and filter the list. If I dismiss the sidebar, I can see that the filter tab is at the top, where tapping it reveals the search bar at the top of the iPad view. There's still more to cover, so let's revert back to the iPhone view in portrait mode. Also new this year is another modifier for tab views, and that's the tabBarMinimizeBehavior. You can specify that if you have a scroll view like we do here, when you either scroll up or scroll down, the tab view will minimize to just show the current tab. For our use, this makes sense. Since our list extends beyond the tab bar when I start to scroll, I want to get that tab bar out of the way. So I'm going to apply a on scroll down. And what this does is it compresses all of the other tabs except the search tab into a single tab on the leading edge, leaving the search tab on the trailing edge. And this has no effect on the tab view when the device is in an iPad with a regular class size like we normally see. We'll check this out later on a simulator when we can reduce the window size. Another method introduced this year for tab views is the TabViewBottomAccessory. And this gives us a view builder that we can use to create a view above the tab bar. For example, we can create a text view, and then we can use string interpolation in the text view to present an image using the system name Swift, and then just follow that with a string made with Swift UI. Now let's also apply a foreground style of orange and add some padding. This places the view in a capsule above the tab bar. In the people list view, when I scroll down, the tab bar compresses as we saw, and the accessory view now fits right in between the compressed tabs and the search tab. All the other tabs is displayed as well. I'll leave it up to you to decide what kind of content that you create for this view. If you're creating an app that has playback controls, this might be the right location for it. And remember that you can also conditionally apply a view based on the selected tab, just as we did for the search functionality. One word of caution though. What I had initially planned was to use this area to add a text field for adding new people to the list. This looks great in the preview, but when I tried to test this on a device or on the simulator and the keyboard displayed, you'll discover that this accessory view, along with the tab bar itself, doesn't rise above the keyboard when presented. So that's not going to work. But to finish this video then, I'm going to take another approach. I'm going to add this directly to the people list view at the bottom SafeArea Inset, which does rise above when the keyboard is presented. So first, in the people list view, I'll need a string state property to bind a text field to. And I'm going to name it new person and initialize it as an empty string. I'm also going to want to be able to control the focus of this text field. So I'll create a focus state property as a Boolean, and I'm going to call isFocused. And that's what I'll bind to the text field that I create. So in the list view then, or attached to the list view, I'm going to create a SafeArea Inset for the bottom edge. Now I only want this to be available when I'm on the first tab, which is the selected tab of 0, not when the selected tab is 3, when it's appearing as a search tab. So I'll want a text field and a submit button. So I'm going to create first an HStack. Next then I'll create a text field and use the string new person and bind the text to the new person state property. I'll set isFocused to the focus variable. And I'll add some padding. Now when the keyboard appears, I'm going to want to have a submit label to change the return to the done type. I also want to use a glass effect here. Now when the user presses the return or now done button, I can call an onSubmit method. And this will be to add a person. So I'm going to create this add person function here, or this call to the function, and create the function now. In this function, we'll first check to see that new person is not empty. And then within an animation block, I'm going to call the manager's add person method, adding in that new person. Then I'll reset the new person string back to an empty string, and then return isFocused to false to dismiss the keyboard. Then, as the second item in the HStack, I'm going to create a button for the same purpose. So the action is going to be to add person. And then for the label, I'm going to use an image using the system name checkmark. And I'll apply a font using a system size of 36. I also want to use the new glass effect here. Let's add some padding to the HStack. Now what I want to do is to disable that button whenever isPerson string is empty. And here's where I ran into a problem. And this may be a bug in the beta 4 that I'm using here, creating this video. If I have a button style of glass, it appears that the disabled option doesn't apply. It still acts as if it's active. You can still tap the expansion of the button. And that's not a great look. If I go to a bordered button style instead of this glass button style, it is disabled. That's how it should be. But I don't like that look. So what I'm going to do instead is to change this button style to plain. And then I'm going to apply a frame with a width and height of 60 to the image. And then I'm going to apply a glass effect to the button rather than a button style. Now it's disabled whenever I have an empty text field, but as soon as I start typing, it becomes enabled so I can add a new person. So let's finish this off now by testing in the simulator on both the iPhone and in the iPad. On the iPhone here, I can see all tabs on the iPhone look great. Back in People List tab, I can tap on the search field and it appears with the disabled button. I can add a new person, like Albert, and as soon as I start typing, the button gets enabled, and then I can tap on the Done button on the keyboard and the person gets entered and the keyboard dismisses with a clear text field again. Let me switch to the iPad. Yeah, this looks good here too. Again though, I can add a new person by tapping in that field, only on the People List view, of course. But we also have the ability now to resize our windows to any size we want, basically. So let's see how our design responds. As you move from a wide, regular class size, the sidebar responds by collapsing to present the toolbar at the top, and that's good. And when you go further down to a compact class size, we now get the iPhone tab bar at the bottom, like we have on the iPhone. Now, the only difference between this and the iPhone is that tapping on the Search tab does not reduce the tab bar to display the search bar here. It's still on the top. Otherwise, everything's the same. So that completes this video, and I hope that you've learned something here that you can use going forward in your own projects as soon as you adopt iPhone and iPadOS 26. Thanks for watching. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. You can subscribe to my channel to get notifications of new videos. And remember that you can also download my YouTube channel listing app for free and quick access to all of my 350 plus YouTube videos. A link's in the description. And also remember I have a full SwiftUI course available on my Teachable site where you learn how to build a fun multi-targeted app.